and to the rest of the team. This presentation is based on a PhD project. It argues that intersectionality should be incorporated in the gender analysis of sexual and gender-based violence in international criminal law for two main purposes: to understand the real nature of sexual violence and to provide a consistent interpretation with human rights. In the first part of the presentation, I will address the theoretical foundations of intersectionality based on feminism and human rights. Then I will try to integrate or show how this theoretical framework of intersectionality based on feminism and human rights applies to international criminal law. Throughout this presentation, I would like you to pay attention to the following intersectional framework: to the fact that understanding the intersection of discrimination, in other words, the way gender is inseparable of other grounds of discrimination, is important to understand the causes of sexual and gender-based crimes, the harms and their gravity, and in so doing, providing access to justice without discrimination. Feminists, starting from Kimberly Crenshaw, argued that the discrimination of certain groups of women cannot be tackled from a narrow or single grounds approach, for instance, only on gender-based or only on ethnicity. But, for instance, in the case of Black American women, one has to take into consideration gender, ethnicity, and class altogether in order to understand the root, the complexity of discrimination and the experiences of harm. Only in this way is it possible to obtain effective remedies. International feminists have argued that international law, and in particular international criminal law as well, has often obscured gender discrimination and gender harms, and argued that a narrow approach to discrimination has been considered, in particular overemphasizing ethnicity. Scholars like Rhonda Copeland or Doris Bush argued, why should international criminal law overemphasize ethnicity at the cost of obscuring gender identity and gender harms? Indeed, as authors like Christine Chinkin or Mary Kaldor argue, new wars are wars of identity politics. This implies that sexual violence is often committed as part of a broader attack against a group based on their ethnicity, religion, etc. And in those situations, sexual and gender-based violence is always intersecting or inseparable from that broader attack against a group based on other identities. Therefore, there is an intersection of discrimination that has to be revealed to understand the causes and the harms of it. International human rights bodies are drawing from many aspects of this feminist understanding of intersectionality, starting by the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, the CEDAW Committee, that makes a direct link between the intersection of discrimination beyond sexual violence, the gravity of the harms, and the importance of identifying this to get access to justice without discrimination. In its general recommendation 28, the CEDAW states that the discrimination of certain groups of women based on sex and gender is inextricably linked to other factors such as race, ethnicity, religion, class, etc., which results in a compounded negative impact. Also, in its general recommendation 33, the CEDAW argues that intersectional discrimination makes it more difficult to access to justice for these women and goes as far as recommending the judiciaries and states to admit the logic of claims based on intersectional grounds of discrimination. Other regional bodies, including the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, have expressly adjudicated on intersectionality. This was in the case González-Llull versus Ecuador. In this judgment, the concurrent opinion of Judge MacGregor-Poisot argued that intersectionality is important because it underscores the particularities of discrimination of historically discriminated groups and has two salient characteristics: analytically inseparable factors because the experiences of discrimination cannot be disaggregated, and different qualitative experiences for victims. Also, the European Court of Human Rights, although not expressly, but has adjudicated on various grounds of discrimination. This was, for example, in the case Carvalho Pinto versus Portugal of 2017, arguing that not identifying various grounds of discrimination taking place constitutes a breach of the prohibition of discrimination under the European Convention. In the second part of this presentation, I would like to explain how this intersectional framework is applicable to cases in international criminal law. And in particular, I would like you to pay attention to the following dynamics. When the prosecutor and judges have considered sexual and gender-based crimes from a narrow or single-axis approach, the result has been a worse understanding of the causes of sexual violence, the harms, and the gravity, and often has resulted in discriminatory approaches in access to justice. On the contrary, when the prosecutor and judges have adopted an intersectional approach, the result has been a better understanding of the causes, the harms and gravity of sexual violence, and less discriminatory results in access to justice. We'll take the example of two international crimes as genocide and terrorism and see how these two different dynamics approach. For instance, in the case of genocide, in the case Rukundo, dealing with the genocide against the Tutsi ethnic group, the appeals chamber argued that the sexual assault of the victim was a qualitatively different act, not constitutive of an act of genocide, because it was opportunistic. This understanding resulted in that the complexity of the causes of sexual violence, as both ethnic and gender were not exposed. The gravity of the sexual assault as an act of genocide was not revealed. And the result can be considered discriminatory in access to justice because considering sexual violence as opportunistic precluded a judicial integration and consideration of this crime as one more crime that may be potentially an act of genocide. On the contrary, the same court in the same situation, in the Akayesu case, considered that sexual violence was an integral part of the process of destruction, specifically targeting Tutsi women and looking for the destruction of the Tutsi group as a whole. This is an intersectional approach that considers the causes of sexual violence as both ethnic and gender, that therefore reveals the gravity of sexual violence not only as an individual act, but as an act of genocide, and the result can be considered not discriminatory in access to justice because charges of sexual violence existed and there was a conviction for sexual violence as an act of rape, as an act of outrages, but also the multiple identities of victims as ethnic and gender were represented through charges and conviction of sexual violence as an act of genocide. Let's take now another international crime, terrorism. The Special Court of Sierra Leone in the AFRC case considered that sexual violence, patterns of sexual violence were committed opportunistically to take advantage of the women as property and using them to satisfy sexual desires. The result was that the causes of sexual violence as gender and a political crime were not revealed, that the gravity of sexual violence as an act of genocide, as an act of terrorism, was not revealed, and the outcome can be considered discriminatory in access to justice because by considering patterns of sexual violence opportunistic, this precluded consideration of sexual violence as one more act of terrorism. On the contrary, the same court dealing with the same situation in the Revolutionary United Front case considered that sexual violence was inflicted to cause pain and fear, not only on the individual victim, but to break family nucleus and the collectivity altogether. This intersectional interpretation of sexual violence enabled to reveal the causes of sexual violence as both a gender and a political crime, the gravity of sexual violence as individual acts and as an act of terrorism, and the result can be considered non-discriminatory in access to justice. To conclude this presentation, I would like to stress that intersectionality should be integrated because in the international criminal law, because it provides a substantive framework for analysis of the causes, the harms and the gravity of sexual and gender-based crimes, leading to non-discriminatory results in access to justice. This is important, and in doing so, in providing this framework, it provides a consistency with a human rights interpretation. This consistency is important because it enables non-fragmentary interpretations in international law, and it allows fulfilling the obligation under Article 21(3) of the Rome Statute to provide consistency with human rights law in interpreting sexual and gender-based crimes. Thank you very much for your attention.